Well, the Johannesburg High Court has ruled in favour of ICASA to implement mobile termination rates tomorrow. Irnest Kaplan, the Managing Director of Kaplan Equity Analysts, and our reporter Christine Mundwa joins us for more. Well, thank you both for joining us. Christine, I know you've had a long day and you've been on the ground, so to speak. So, Ernst, I think before we go any further, let's just get an update from Christine in terms of the atmosphere, what went on today. And I'm sure you must have met some very people with heated opinions.
Certainly, Bronwyn, court was packed today. In fact, we had lawyers that weren't even part of the case just being in court just to hear this judgment. Of course, you know, it is an unprecedented case. And the judge also highlighted the unprecedented nature of interest that has been on this case. But as was said in the intro, Bronwyn, the judge has rejected the interim appeal being sought by Vodacom and MTN, and so ICASA can go ahead and implement those mobile termination rates, those very controversial ones, as of midnight this evening.
Yeah, but it's only 6 months, isn't it, Christine? And Ernest, I'll address this question to you now. It says here South Africa's telecoms regulator can go ahead with plans cuts to mobile interconnection rates, throwing out a petition by the two biggest operators to prevent reductions scheduled for April the 1st. But it's only 6 months. Why only 6 months? So if you're going to make a decision, make it forever, surely.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, everybody. I think the announcement today is quite confusing because, you know, on the one hand, you've got MTN and Vodacom fighting against these rate declines, but on the other hand, you know, you have a partial win because the court has said that the process which ICASA followed is not valid. So in other words, what they're saying is drop the rates for 6 months and then decide what you're going to do. And quite frankly, I don't think we know what's going to happen.
Well, look at the numbers that have been thrown around here. Vodacom is saying that they're going to lose up to 1 billion rand over their 6-month period, and MTN 450 million rand. Are those the numbers that you're putting into your models? And that's before Viv comes in and then Sid.
Yes, Bronwyn, but what we don't know is what's going to happen after the 6 months. You know, will the glide slope be as ICASA, you know, previously indicated, or will it just stay at that rate, or will it perhaps go up? We don't know.
Viv?
I mean, one of the reasons that they had the asymmetry is actually to create more competition. 6 months, by the way, is of course by no means enough time to create more competition. While at the same time, this uncertainty is also going to distract investment, especially from the larger, you know, producers out there, MTN and Vodacom. I mean, what would be the best way forward for ICASA to go from here? I mean, do you think asymmetry is what's necessary to get like Telkom Mobile and Cell C up to scratch, or must there be some other kind of you know, support for the smaller producers?
Look, I'm not going to claim that I will make the decision for the regulatory bodies and the policy makers here, because it is a tricky one that has pros and cons on both sides. But what I'm going to say is that certainty in this industry is of the utmost importance, and we don't have that now. So while there may be a partial win here for some parties and the consumers think that they've gained because the rates are going to drop, I actually think that the industry is partially in a bit of confusion here. And what's more is that we don't know what's going to happen to the retail rates tomorrow or over the next few weeks. Well, it's going to be very exciting to watch.
That's the question I want to pose to you. Now, I'm talking on behalf of all 50 million South Africans. Is the cost of making a mobile phone call going to come down from tomorrow? And maybe we should look at in the past, when those termination rates, as they have come down previously, have cell phone costs come down
so has it translated to the end consumer?
To the consumer.
Yes, it has. And I don't think these declines are going to mean that rates are going to immediately drop tomorrow. And I think the main reason is because these companies aren't quite sure what's going to happen from 6 months onwards.
Okay, so if the rate to the consumer, the price that I pay, if that doesn't come down, who benefits and who loses from this reduction effective tonight?
Effective tonight, it would be the smaller operators, Cell C and Telkom Mobile, that would benefit for the next 6 months, because the level of asymmetry between them is now, you know, greatly in their favour.
Lindsay, you want to come in here again?
Yeah, I do, Christine. It says here the big operators argued that they had invested most in networks and the reduced rates would benefit smaller rivals such as Telkom SA and unlisted Cell C. Now, this is a sort of a David versus Goliath syndrome here, but have they been bullying us in the past, the two big ones, and are the smaller players suddenly justified in trying to catch up? What do you think?
Certainly, yes, Lindsay. One of the arguments that was put to the court last week is that for a very long time the market was not regulated at all. So you had MTN and Vodacom deciding on the mobile termination rates, and of course, you know, costs were very high. They took us back to when Cell C entered the market, and we saw that costs, well, this is now literally to make a call, shot up very, very high. I don't have the exact numbers with me at this moment, but that was, of course, what ICASA and Cell C argued, the two big networks colluding to squash the competition. So a part of what this ruling has been about today, and the judge Hyatt went on to say that she's acting in the interest of the consumer. If we don't have asymmetry in the interconnect market, there's just no way the likes of Telkom Mobile and Cell C are going to be able to price competitively. And in that case, she's allowed for, whilst ICASA reviews its rates and while they come up with a better model and use the correct data, that it's better off letting the 2014 regulation go into play as opposed to leaving the market unregulated, which will leave, once again, Vodacom and MTN deciding on that rate.
But again, there, Irnest, you're pointing to the uncertainty that exists 6 months out. I want to know the investment case now for MTN and Vodacom.
Never mind
what would
that.
you be doing? I want to know, wait, before you
What
go
about
there.
Telkom?
Yes,
What about the
absolutely.
investment
So
case
put
for
the
Telkom?
investment case for all of those, Vodacom, MTN, and, as Sid reminds me, Telkom.
I think the whole idea of mobile rate termination or that rate declining is more negative for Vodacom because South Africa is a much bigger proportion of their group. Slightly negative for MTN because South Africa is probably less than 30% of the group now. And positive for Telkom in the sense of Telkom Mobile. So I would say, you overlay that on top of your traditional views on those companies. I'm still an MTN supporter and a Vodacom supporter despite this news.
So would you be buying at current levels?
Yeah.
Both stocks?
Yeah.
Telkom?
Undecided at this point.
Is that enough for you, Sid? He's undecided on Telkom. We can't push him any harder on the Telkom story this evening.
That's fair comment. That's very fair comment. I mean, the key thing. I mean, this whole thing boils down to one thing. Cutting termination rates is one thing, but at what point does the consumer benefit? Because when the consumer starts benefiting, then everybody loses because the price that I pay for a mobile call comes down, no matter which network I'm on. Now, will that happen? You know, we've got a 6-month time frame. In all probability, not. I'm just speculating.
And it's good speculation.
I think
Irnest?
if one looks at the average or effective rate that the operators have charged customers, such as ourselves, over the past 10 years, it has declined. I forget the exact figure, but it's in the region of 10 to 20% compound per year. Or at least it hasn't gone up much at all. So, you know, these companies are going to rely far less on voice over the next 5 years.
Absolutely.
And where all the action is going to start happening is on the data side.
Viv, a quick one before we leave this discussion.
Just to know, I mean, are South Africans paying much more than comparable markets out there in the world? If so, is it because of ICASA or because of the lack of competition?
I think it's difficult for me to answer that. I don't have all the figures, but what I will say is that there are some countries that charge way more than our operators, and there's some that charge quite a lot less. I think what one needs to do as well when you look at those calculations is look at the quality of the service you're getting and the breadth of the service in that country, and then compare the rates in some kind of way where you cater for those two things, and you'll probably find that our operators are not as high as one would think they are.